Greetings, one and all, and welcome to Lord of the Rings lore. In this entry, let us examine a matter of no small significance to the setting of Tolkien's legendarium, the Rings of Power. After the defeat of Morgoth, Sauron was his greatest remaining servant. Unwilling to submit to the judgment of the Valar, he lay low for 5 centuries before he began to act once again. You see, whereas Morgoth wished to destroy all of creation, Sauron sought subjugation. He wished to rule Middle-earth, and so he devised a scheme to achieve that end. He took the form of a fair figure, calling himself Anatar, the Lord of Gifts, and approached several leaders of the elves. As though men were easier to bring under his sway, the elves were far more powerful. He was turned aside by several elven lords, such as Gil-galad and Elrond, who did not trust this unknown Maiar. He was turned aside, though these elven lords did not truly perceive who he was. He found his opening when he came to the elven kingdom of Eregion, however. Eregion was unorthodox in that the elves there had bonded with the dwarves of the nearby Khazad-dûm, as both societies shared a love of crafting and would share resources and knowledge. Anatar was welcomed with open arms, and only Galadriel was wary of him. Celebrimbor, the greatest craftsman of his people, was taken under Sauron's tutelage. Under the latter's guidance, he first crafted an unknown number of lesser rings, whose abilities are unknown, though they were certainly far less than the 20 that would come later. You see, many of the elves remaining in Middle-earth wished to preserve their lands and kingdoms, staving off the damages of the passing of time. They wished to remain in Middle-earth for one of 2 reasons. Some had grown attached to the land they fought for, and had no desire to leave it, while others knew that in this land they would have influence and power over the other races, whereas in Valinor they would sit beneath the Valar and Maiar. Thus these rings that Anatar taught Celebrimbor to make were designed to stave off decay and to preserve their way of life. When Celebrimbor's skill grew great enough, he and Sauron crafted 16 great rings of power, one of which was gifted to Durin III of Khazad-dûm. Anatar then departed Eregion, though Celebrimbor then crafted 3 more rings, the 3 that would later be known as the Elven Rings. These were named Narya, Nenya, and Vilya. Narya was the Ring of Fire, and was set with a ruby. Nenya was the Ring of Water, made of mithril and set with a stone of adamant. And Vilya was the Ring of Air, made of gold with a sapphire stone. Sauron would later desire these rings above the other 16, though he never laid his hands upon them. Sauron returned to Mordor, however, and forged the 20th Great Ring of Power, his one ring to rule them all, for it would be through this ring that he would influence the wearers of the others, bringing them under his sway so that he may rule over Middle-earth. This ring bore much of Sauron's power, and while it was his greatest strength, it was also his greatest vulnerability. As Sauron donned his one ring, the bearers of the Elven Three became aware of him and his intentions, and knew that they had been deceived. They removed theirs at once, before he could have a hold over them, and he in turn discovered the existence of the 3. Enraged, he declared war on the elves, and Celebrimbor sent away the 3 Elven Rings. The elves were unable to withstand Sauron's forces, and Eregion was overwhelmed. Under torture, Celebrimbor revealed the locations of the 16 rings that he had crafted with Sauron, but he would not divulge bulge where he had sent the three. Sauron proceeded to torture him to death and flew his body as a banner when he attacked the Grey Havens. His siege of that elven stronghold was routed by the arrival of the men of Numenor, however, and he swore revenge upon them. Sauron declared himself the King of Men, as he knew that this would provoke the Númenóreans, as they were prideful. When they arrived in force to assail him, he surrendered, and was taken as a prisoner to the Isle of Númenor, where he used the power of his One Ring to slowly gain favor with the king, eventually bringing about Númenor's downfall, though that is a story for its own video. Sauron would later distribute the 16 rings to the Dwarven kings and prominent men, though the dwarves proved resistant to corruption and were only made more greedy and quick to anger. Men, however, proved to be too susceptible to corruption. They became mighty in different ways, such as kings, warriors, or sorcerers, but one by one, they all fell to the corruption of the rings, fading away entirely into the Wraith world, and could only interact with the physical world when clad in armor and cloaks that Sauron gave them. Sauron declared war on the remnants of Númenor and the elves, and thus began the War of the Last Alliance, in which Sauron was defeated in battle by the elven lord Gil-galad and the king of Gondor and Arnor, Elendil, father of Isildur. Sauron was deprived of a physical form for 1,000 years, and his ring was taken by Isildur, though it was lost to the Gladden River when he was slain. For over 2,000 years it lay beneath the water, until it was found by Smeagol and Deagol. Sauron held the 9 Rings of Men, and recovered 3 of the Dwarven Rings, though 4 were consumed and destroyed by dragons. He would attempt to use these 3 as a bargaining chip with the dwarves of Erebor, after he discovered that the One Ring had been found and taken by Bilbo, though the dwarves told him nothing. Of the 3 rings, Elrond came to bear Vilya, Galadriel bore Nenya, and Círdan of the Grey Havens wore Narya, though he later gave it to Gandalf to aid him in his quest. But Sauron bent all his thought into recovering the One Ring and restoring his power, for the One Ring was not like the other 19. The One had a will of its own, and it sought to return to its master. It would feed off the desires of those who bore it or were nearby, and tempt them into attempting to use it, and thus be taken by Sauron. Sauron based his actions off of what he would have done if he was the one to lead the Free Peoples, and he would have ensured that the ring was given to their greatest leader, that being Aragorn. He was the one who could unite the forces of men against him, and was the greatest threat, as the dwarves and elves were greatly diminished. Knowing this, Aragorn presented himself to Sauron through the Palantir recovered from the Tower of Orthanc after Saruman was defeated, further cementing in Sauron's mind that Aragorn possessed the One Ring. So when Aragorn led a small force to the Black Gate, Sauron had no reason to assume anything other than Aragorn had taken the ring, and believed himself to be its new master. While one could wrest mastery over the ring from Sauron, they would need to bend their will towards domination of others, and in so doing, become no different from him. It was only when Frodo claimed the ring in Mount Doom that Sauron became aware of his mistake. The Free Peoples wished for the ring to be destroyed, and for no one to wield it. Fortunately for Middle-earth, Gollum took hold of the ring and fell into the fires below, and in so doing, unmade the ring. Most of Sauron's power was destroyed with it, rendering him a formless being that could no longer interact with the world. The other rings had their own power tied to the One Ring as well, and so became powerless without it. The elves then had no choice but to leave Middle-earth after this. Saruman himself had even attempted to create a ring of his own, though without the knowledge of Sauron, he only succeeded in creating a lesser ring, which had no powers that bore mentioning. But with the One Ring's destruction, the greatest threat to the free peoples of the Second and Third Ages was removed, and so men inherited Middle-earth. What do you think about the Rings of Power? They were intended to be a subtle way for Sauron to seize control of Middle-earth, but they were soon undone by the elves discovering their nature, the dwarves being too resistant, and men too susceptible. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Leave a like on this video if you're so inclined, and subscribe to see more. I would like to thank you for watching, and may you all have a weapon in each hand.